The Deadlights eyes.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I'll play again.
Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Killer Mom.
I'm just gonna bash you.
What's blood for? If not for shedding.
Welcome to 31 Days of Horror Movies 2021. I'm your host, Sam Johnson, and with me, we got some newcomers and we got some old comers. First of all, Adam, Leslie, Allison, but newcomer, Richard.
Yes.
Welcome.
Old timer, long time listener.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Day 20 was American Psycho from 2000, directed by Mary Harron and written by Mary Harron and Guinevere Turner, based on the novel by Bret Easton Ellis. A wealthy New York City investment banking executive, Patrick Bateman, hides his alternate psychopathic ego from his coworkers and friends as he delves deeper into his violent, hedonistic fantasies.
Looking into the movie today, I read this and I thought this was interesting. So, the novel written by Bret Easton Ellis, 80s male writer, wrote a lot about yuppies and kind of like rich people because he was a rich person. The novel is considered really misogynistic, but the movie, to counter it, is directed and kind of like laid out in a feminist viewpoint. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting, like adapting something that's so incredibly misogynistic and like putting it through a new lens. And I think it's apparent when you're watching it too.
Absolutely. Their misogyny in this entire movie is the scariest part. I mean, the first couple scenes when they're always in a restaurant. They're always in restaurants, going to lunch, going to dinner, talking. Every time that it's those group of guys together, they are all talking about the most misogynistic stuff you can possibly think. They're just like going down every single tick, like being sexist, being homophobic, being drug users, being drinkers. Like it becomes a parody of misogyny. It becomes
and their fucking business cards.
Yeah, that's
oh my god.
He's got a Zagat guide in his house. That's how you know what year it is. It says 1987. That's like the first time you make reference to when you are.
Oh, it says 87.
It says 87.
Oh,
on the Zagat guide.
So we're in the 80s.
We're in the 80s,
and a lot of this movie the music is very beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's very orchestral and seems poetic, mixing with what we're seeing, and it almost seems like this is also how Patrick Bateman views his life. All these guys through this whole movie are constantly trying to one-up each other. Mm-hmm. And when someone one-up one, that person has to come back with something else to one-up the other.
And what our character does is that he goes, anytime that somebody presents him with a card that is better than him, he has to go and bang somebody.
Or somebody.
Wow. I mean,
he's got to do something.
It turns very quickly into sexual.
Yeah.
And even when he's going to choke the guy, it's.
I think it's because for him, killing and sexual pleasure is the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like the sexual pleasure is the appetizer. Obviously, the killing's the main course.
Ooh, like the restaurants that they go to.
But that's why not every time he goes to a restaurant, he doesn't have a full meal. You know, sometimes he'll just have an appetizer. He doesn't always kill somebody, which you see in the movie. He kind of holds himself back.
We go to his apartment for the first time, and this is the first time that we get the voiceover that's going on. And the voiceovers through this movie are really interesting because they're very... He's talking, and it's again over this like beautiful piano music. He's talking about very almost mundane things as if they're genius ideas. Everything he's saying is, he's talking about his routine, his daily routine. I do this, I moisturize with this, I do 1,000 curl-ups.
If I wake up with a poofy face, I make sure that I put on my
everything is, from one perspective, can be very like, yeah, that could be anyone's morning routine. But how he's presenting it is almost like, this is a art piece that I am an art piece. And how he's shot in that scene is very like Greek god. He's stretching and doing these like, he's thinking of himself and his routine as something more than human. He's more than human. He's out of this world. He's above everyone else because he's figured out this special routine for himself.
I do like the face mask though when he peels.
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
He
But
peels
that's when
off
it
his
changes.
face.
He says that like all of this is to put on
Right.
a mask, a face, because in reality, like all these things make the look of a man, but there's nothing inside.
Yeah.
He says, "I'm not there."
I'm not
That's
there.
the last thing he says.
I mean, to add on to that, that's kind of what I was going to say. And not only in that scene, the whole movie, he's pretending to be somebody who he perceives as normal.
Yeah.
The whole movie, every scene he's in, when he's in front of other people, he's pretending to be somebody who he's not. And this is how somebody should act. Obviously, the way he acts is already cocky and privileged, and obviously through a very narrow telescope. But every single time he's putting on a role, he's never himself. He never really reveals himself. When he's talking to other people, he takes a very front seat manner when it comes to issues. He corrects people in some instances when the misogynistic, kind of sexist, homophobic, and even anti-Semitic behavior is mentioned from him. He corrects it. Now, the character might not really like agree with what he's saying, like we said earlier, because he's putting on a mask. But I think that was a choice in the direction to make him more of an outlier from the world he's in.
Because he's trying to, quote unquote, be progressive.
Right. This is how someone who is with it would speak.
Right. Our first kill of the movie, which we see, which he turned from this somewhat charitable moment, which I feel like I didn't buy he was being charitable for one moment. He was just messing with this guy from the jump, to stabbing him and then stomping out his dog.
Yeah. Well, he like first looked like he was gonna take out his wallet. And he was like, "Oh,
you're so kind, mister."
And then he's like, "You're so kind, you're so kind." And he's like, "You need to get a fucking job, Al. What are you doing, Al?"
In his next scene, in the next narration that he does, which it follows right after this, he says, "I have no emotion other than greed and disgust." And so, like, finding something that both disgusts him and, he has contempt for, like, because it's so far away from greed, being homeless, being being at the mercy of other people. We have nothing in common. Yeah. It's this ego trip, this like a way to satisfy, feel a thing. If he only feels greed and disgust, and then this kill is a satisfaction of both those emotions.
Or Jared Leto character is somewhat important. We've met Jared Leto's character,
Paul
Allen, in a previous scene where they're in the room.
That's the horny business card.
Business card scene. They see his business card, and he is like absolutely threatened by this.
Probably the most famous scene in the movie. That's the most quoted scene.
Absolutely, it's bone, eggshell. It's always they look exactly alike.
Can I see Paul Allen's card?
Yeah, and it's just he like drops it, and his penis inverts into his body.
The build up in that scene is so good though.
Yeah, no, everyone's pulling out their business cards, and everyone's feeling threatened by everyone else.
And the sound, every time they open it, it's like a knife slicing.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's a sword being removed from a sheath, slowed down.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow.
Hey,
Good boy.
because these are their weapons to each other. I mean, this is how they're fighting each other with material.
He wanted to be him so bad. He admired him for everything that he was, his charisma, his fucking like work ethic, his business cards, his suits.
He was another threat to him.
He's the real Patrick Bateman. He's not a sociopath.
Yeah.
Like that's like what he would want to be if he were real.
And then he goes back to his apartment, and this is when we get our real first apartment kill. We get kind of the Patrick Bateman routine, because he starts talking about Huey Lewis and the news.
Oh yeah.
And we start listening to it's hip to be square. Cut to the clip.
Fiore.
He lays down the newspaper.
Patrick, what's up with the classifieds on the floor?
You got a dog or something?
Yeah, you have a little pooch
A
or
little
something.
chow chow.
A chow chow. I had a chow chow when I was little.
As he was talking about Huey Lewis and the News, which sounds ridiculous to say, but as he was talking about them, it's like he was spiraling into and like revving up to the eventual kill, which that axe is a mirror, which there's a lot of mirrors going on in this movie because it's very narcissistic, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I really like that design of that axe, the weapon, the
shiny,
the mode of murder to be something also that he can look into and see himself. Mm-hmm. He kills Paul Allen, and just that is the first moment I feel like we saw him actually become himself, where he lost control and he really
dancing.
Well, he started dancing, but when he started hitting him with the axe, he really just like lost it for a second, and like he just like really was laying into this guy's head, and then stopped, and he put the mask immediately back on.
I think Christian Bale's incredible in this movie.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of Christian Bale movies. I think this is my favorite Christian Bale role, because obviously everyone who knows like about Christian Bale performances, he puts all his effort into them. You lose a bunch of weight, but this is one of those movies where people on set didn't know he wasn't American, because he has a Welsh accent when he speaks.
Yeah.
The castmates thought he was like a New York yuppie. This is an English-born child actor who didn't grow up in this time, who isn't this kind of person, who had to get buff and learn the yuppie terminology, you know? Like,
he is a Welsh actor who's coming into a role where he's supposed to be an American. He's supposed to be something that he's completely not. It is actually exactly what Patrick Bateman is trying to do. He is not a yuppie. He is not like anyone else around him. He is so hard trying to pretend that he is part of them, but he's not, which is exactly what he had to do for the role.
You know what sets
he was
him
almost perfect
apart?
for it. Paul Allen is dead, and no one cares. Well, okay, let's be honest. Someone does care, and the person that does care is the detective. Willem Dafoe shows up in this film.
Green Goblin.
This is the movie where they film it like you know he did.
This
film
is
it like
the most Reddit movie fact about this movie.
Is that
in this scene for the final cut of the movie they use 3 different takes.
Okay.
They use a take where Willem Dafoe knows he's the murderer, where he suspects he's the murderer, and where he has no idea that he's the murderer.
Oh, okay. And do they mash them together?
And it's mashed together.
Okay.
That's why the scene
the whole
feels
time.
so like.
And even the scene
So
later,
Yeah.
when they're at lunch, also seems like either he's suspicious, or he knows, or he has no idea. For Patrick Bateman, it almost doesn't matter what take that they use. Whether it's he doesn't suspect him, he kind of suspects him, or he knows he did. It doesn't matter, because he is a threat to him. He has showed up there because of something that he knows that he did, which will threat his job, his status, how other people view him, which I think is the ultimate thing that he cares about.
The next kind of scene he has is with his assistant. He invites her over, and they're like having a conversation, and she's like actually engaging with him as a person more, and like he's like kind of doing like this like talking in vagaries and like making up like, oh, this is the, you know, you really have to think this way or behave this way, and that like things will come to you.
He's moving around his apartment, like grabbing the duct tape, and then also like
he grabs the duct tape, but then he puts it back after she asks what the duct tape is, and he grabs the nail gun, and like, but she asks him, do you try and make people happy? Like, what do you do? Like, have you ever tried to make someone happy? Is what she asks him right there. And it's like the first time he's asked to think about, and like he doesn't hear it the first time, so she has to ask him again. Like,
is that right when he's about to?
Yeah. Do you try and make people happy? And then he doesn't quite answer it. It's another like vagueness thing, but like she engages with him as a human in a way that like no one else does.
Yeah.
But he doesn't get out of it until his illusion with his assistant is broken, and he gets called by his fiance.
This is one of the few moments where he actually spares someone's life, and he lets her go, and she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, don't forget that meeting tomorrow." Thanks.
The last couple of scenes, does he even ever show an ounce of controlling himself anymore? Once you reach the last 25 minutes of the movie, where he's just fully, full 80s psycho in that point,
and I think
he's the chainsaw around, doing the chainsaw dance.
Yeah, he's doing the chainsaw dance. Almost.
I mean, this is like after one of his victims knocks on multiple doors. I'm talking about some horrific midlife. Imagine we're doing this podcast and someone knocks on, it would freak the fuck out, right?
Yeah.
That scene when she's running away through this, it seems like this maze that she's running, like so many doors and so many random rooms that she's running in, and it's super dark. And you
finding bodies and
finding bodies.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
In the closet,
the head in the freezer.
Yeah.
The head in the freezer. Yeah, exactly. And then you have Patrick Bateman literally running after her with a chainsaw. Super
just shoes.
Naked.
Just shoes.
Some nice sneaks.
Fucking shoes.
White. Covered in blood.
Yeah.
And she's running down the hall, pounding on every door. No one's answering. She's running, and he doesn't even seem to be concerned with the fact that he's in an apartment.
This ain't sweating about business cards. This is a different animal we're crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is like full on insane. But he's also like, feels like he's also completely in control because he's not concerned about anyone interrupting what's going on. I felt like at that point in the movie, he felt himself, he became more brazen. He became more confident and cocky in his killing because at that point, he had already killed a lot of people, in his mind at least. So for him to just turn around, because he didn't look panicked. He looked very calm as he just turned around and just shot that old lady. And then as he ran away, shot a bunch of cops. Their cars blew up. He checked the time and then walked away. Like he was at this point, very confident. He was very confident about everything and brazen about what he was doing, which usually leads to, in real life, killers' downfalls. They become too confident in what they're doing and they get careless and they make just silly mistakes like that. What happens in this scene that we're ultimately getting to, where he confesses everything to his lawyer, exactly says what you're talking about. He has put on this mask so well of being part of these people that even after calling his lawyer and confessing every single thing that he's done to all these people, he's done such a good job of pretending to be something that he's not, that when he finally does see his lawyer in person and says, "Did you get my message?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that was hilarious. No. I killed those people. I did that." And he's like, "Come on, stop playing around." He thinks he's Marcus at the beginning, right?
Yeah, the lawyer thinks he's Marcus. The lawyer thinks he's a different person. And then and he's like, "Oh, that's so funny. Patrick Bateman doing all that spineless wimp."
Yeah.
Like the lawyer has this concept of Patrick Bateman. So only because of that do I was confused. Because it was like, that's the moment where you're like, oh wait, is he not actually Patrick Bateman and he's fantasizing Patrick Bateman doing all these things? But then also that is exactly what Patrick Bateman would make him feel bad, would make him feel lesser, is if he hears someone talking about him behind his back as if he's a wimp. And that's what he thinks everyone's talking about him.
But it's also the perfect, almost his goal the whole time is to blend in. He's trying to blend in with all these people the entire time so hard. And he has blended in. And he's just one of these other people that you can be confused with any of those four guys at the table that he comes to every time. All those guys are the same. Who's Patrick Bateman? Any of those guys.
That
really.
It's not the question whether Patrick Bateman is a sociopath. It's whether he's a serial killer or not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because he could have the drawings, he could watch the porn, he can listen to the music, he could talk in that tone the whole time, but still not kill anybody.
Right.
But it's the murders happen always in secrecy, which kind of like deceives the viewer in a sense at the end.
And the only murder that anyone besides him actually addresses is the murder of Paul Allen, or the disappearance of Paul Allen. And in that last scene, the lawyer says, I had lunch with Paul Allen 10 days ago. So is he even dead?
His lawyer, who confuses him for another person. And these group of men who are willing to pretend to be someone else just to, I don't know, get another dinner. I need to get a reservation.
I just need to know we have a reservation.
Is the lawyer high too?
Yeah.
And is it real? Because I've always thought of like, maybe it's not real, but I've never thought of it that way where it's like maybe there's such a dissociative nature to these fucking pricks. Maybe it is real, and like
it could be real.
Nobody cares,
And all these other guys probably are doing similar things. Well, thank you all so much for being here for American Psycho. Please plug yourself, Richard.
I'm Richard Pizarro at Richard Pizarro 2000 on Instagram, and I'm Sam's roommate and friend, and I'm in many of his things.
Perfect.
Check out my podcast, Season 3, Episode 4, anywhere you can find podcasts. Words are words, numbers are numbers.
That's Leslie.
Perfect.
Thank you, Chainsaws. Not barf bags.
Our sponsors, Chainsaws.
Yeah.
What is it? Cut Right.
Cut Right.
Sponsors, Cut Right.
Cut Right.
Cut Right.
Make sure to drink your Cut Right with food and milk.
Or milk.
It's not a soap.
It's
not a soap.
Not a soap.
Don't use loofahs.
Right.
Do not fucking use loofahs.
Don't use loofahs.
Don't use sponges. A loofah is like, plastic, acrylic.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking full. But you know what?
Yo, loofah's a
Rich
gourd.
people use that shit, though. Use that sponge. Yes, they do.
Wait, you know what?
Because they think it's fancy. It's fancy.
Their vaginas are full of fucking diseases.
Their vaginas are clean, but whatever they want to clean it with.
No! Absolutely
They don't
not.
use that. Listen, if I had a vagina,
They have yeast.
I wouldn't use to clean that as well. I'd be smart off the bat. I'd be born with cleanliness knowledge.
No.
I wouldn't be. You're telling me that?
No, yeah,
Well,
I'm telling you, the loofah.
I never said I would use a sponge. Of course I'd use my hands. It makes sense.
Yes.
Yes. Everyone can just use their hands. It's fine. And as a lesson, you roll the clip. And you can find me at Beep Beep Richie T on Instagram, and also check out Playground Social, which is the studio that we are filming this at. But until tomorrow, I guess let's get spooky, y'all. Oh.